Today we're going to do a very basic instructional video on how to do some pressure canning. And we're going to demonstrate how to pressure can some hamburger. I've got a sample of what this looks like when it's done. Now what we do sometimes is just purchase some hamburger when it goes on sale, and then we take 4 or 5 or 6 packages and we use these bigger jars, and it doesn't take very much time at all. And pressure can like this, I mean, this will last you for a very long time on the shelf, rather than freezing it, where if the power goes out for any amount of time, then we have to use it. But then we can pressure can it if the power goes out as well. We use a gas stove outside, or even one of our wood rocket stoves. The benefit of doing it like this is once it's on the shelf, like I said, it does preserve for a very long time. It doesn't take up a lot of freezer space, and we can spice this as we use it. We can use it in sauces. We can use it to make hamburger patties, or it's just ready to go. Now the difference between using a pressure canner and just a canner is when you want to do some low acid foods, you definitely need a pressure canner. Now a pressure canner will have a relief valve, and it will have a gauge as well. And we're going to put a bit of a guide in the description here. But for the most part, you'll want to follow the instructions very carefully. You don't want to end up with some sort of poisoning with your food, and not to scare you, but if it's done right, you will be safe. The other method is to, when you're doing your foods that have high acid content, like your jams and your jellies and your pickled vegetables, then you can just water bath them in just a regular canner, usually for 10 or 15 minutes. These ones here, usually for the smaller jars, you're looking at 60 to 65 minutes, and then upwards of like 90 minutes for these larger jars. So this is just a sample of what we do here. I've got some rabbit here, I've got some hamburger, I've got some venison here, and we also do some beef as well. Now for the high acid foods here, you know, your typical, your pickled beets. This is in vinegar here, so mixed vegetables here. We've got some hot peppers here. We've got just some regular onions, some red onions, some green tomato chow, as well as some pasta sauce that we make ourselves. We grow a lot of Roma tomatoes here and that. So we're going to go upstairs and fire up the stove, and I'm going to get my assistant to give me a hand, and we're going to show you roughly, we're going to demonstrate what's involved in making some hamburger. Doesn't take very long at all, and it's fairly an easy process, so we're going to encourage you to go ahead and try it sometime, and then you'll enjoy the fruit of your own labor. So the first thing we do when we prepare our hamburger, or any meat really, to bottle, is we want to season it. We want to, in this case, as we're doing hamburger, we want to put some seasonings in it. So we're just going to use garlic in this case. We also want to get our equipment ready. So here we have our bands and our lids that are soaking in some hot water. We also get our implements ready. We like to sterilize our jars, in this case in the oven. We put them in at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for just 20 minutes or so until they're warm. We put our garlic in, and then we prepare just to put the hamburger in. Now, some people like to sterilize their jars in the hot water. You can use your pressure canner and put extra hot water in it. The important thing to remember is you don't want to put cold jars into the hot water, because you can snap your glass jars at that point. In filling your jars, what you want to do, a couple things to remember, is you don't want to overfill them. You want to leave about 1 inch of head space. In this case with hamburger, you want to pack it in fairly tight. You don't need to put any liquid. It will create its own liquid. And then you'll see in just a moment, you also want to wipe the rim as well. You don't want to have any residue or any meat on there. It's a very simple process, doesn't take very long at all. Put all kinds of spices in there as well. Sometimes you can some some peppercorns or however you like to season your meat, some salt and some pepper. Moving the meat away from the edge. And again, you want to wipe your rim very well so that you have a really good seal between your rubber lid and then the glass. We use these magnetic little, whatever these are called, magnetic little handle things to make it easier because the water does get hot. Put the band seal on. And we have the water in the pressure canner already fairly warm but not overly hot at this point. The meat is cold but the jar is hot. And then gently place the jar in there. I think we put 7 or 8 jars in there typically. So we're going to keep repeating this process until all of our meat is gone, and we've done this before, so we have a pretty good idea of how much meat to put in there in a good batch. I think it's 7 or 8 jars that we'll put in there. And again, if we have too much, scoop some out. Just set it aside for maybe a little treat for the dogs. Some people say that pressure canner doesn't work really well on one of these convection stoves, convection tops. It's worked okay for us. It's probably not the most ideal. A gas stove obviously is the better choice. An electric element stove is the next best choice, but this is what we have, and so this is what we use. You can see the water's getting a little warmer now. So one thing to make sure as well is once you have all of your jars into your pressure canner, is you want to make sure that the tops of all of your jars is completely covered by about 1 inch. You're not going to lose too much of your liquid in there. Once you build up the pressure, the liquid, the water is going to stay pretty much inside your pressure canner. So putting the final touches on the last jar. And for these particular jars, we're going to put them in the hot water. Once it reaches pressure, the little pressure plug is going to pop up, and then we're going to bring this up to 11 pounds for approximately, I believe it's 75 minutes for these little jars. So there we've got 7 in there. And just put the tight fitting lid on there. I usually put the lid on there for my wife, so she's a little bit of a challenge there, but 1 through 2, 3 tries, and we're on. And just wait for the pressure to build up, and then we're all set. It takes about 10 or 12 minutes for the pressure to build up. Once it's all done, we wait for the pressure release valve to release. Gently open the top. Again, these are really tight fitting lids. Water will be really hot. And then you'll see the meat still kind of cooking in there. We'll leave these sitting on the counter usually overnight. We do cover them with a cloth so they don't cool down too quickly. Usually within a couple of minutes you'll hear a pop, and that's just the lid sealing itself, and that's a good indication. If perchance any of these don't seal properly, like the lid doesn't pop down, don't pop it down with your finger. It just means it didn't seal. So either you can put it in the fridge and use it in the next few days, or if you have a second batch that you're going to be processing, stick it back in the pot, and you can go ahead and can it again. You may want to take the lid off and Just make sure there's no food obstructing the lid. Sometimes there's a little piece of meat or something that gets in there. And that's about it. Wipe the jars down because sometimes they'll have an oily film, and put them on your counter and enjoy. So that's the basics of it. Put it away and enjoy it.